Hi there, and welcome to me, Audrina Lane, and here we are again with my debut novel, Where Did Your Heart Go? And it's chapter 53 today, but because it's a bit of a long one, again it's going to be in two parts. So let's get started on part one. Charlotte looked at the clock. It was only 5:30 in the morning. Weak sunlight poured in through the curtains as she sat up and tried to contain her breathing. She'd been having another nightmare. This time she forgot all the steps to their song and just stood on the stage, with everyone laughing. Her stomach heaved with the thought, and she leapt out of bed and into the bathroom, throwing up the remains of last night's burger. Rinsing her face and cleaning her teeth, she started to feel a little better as she leaned against the cool tiles. Her heart was still beating, and the fear still there, that maybe they hadn't practiced enough. "Charlotte, are you okay?" Mitch asked. She pulled open the door and fell into his arms. He held her shaking body and felt the slight sheen of sweat on her forehead, which rested against his chest. "Just a nightmare and nerves," Charlie replied, glad to feel his solid frame holding her. He pulled her over to the bed and they sat down. "Come on, tell me about it," he coaxed. "I dreamt that I forgot all the steps to our dance and just stood on the stage and everyone was laughing," Charlotte replied, thinking how silly that sounded. "Perhaps we need to have a quick practice then." He reached for the phone and rang down to reception. Charlie listened in to his side of the conversation with a puzzled look on her face. "Get dressed then, we have a half an hour slot downstairs in the dining room before they lay up for breakfast." Dropping a quick kiss on her forehead, they dressed in their dancing clothes. As they reached the foyer, the girl on reception stood up and came round the desk. "Morning, Mr. Cook, would you like to follow me?" Charlie watched her looking at Mitch, so she held on to his hand tightly. She pulled open some double doors into a large room with chairs and tables stacked at the one end, and a small stage at the other. "The staff will need to be in here by 6:15 to sort out the tables for breakfast." "No problem," Mitch said. "Do you have a music system?" "There's one beside the stage." In the large room, Charlie still felt the butterflies inside her as they walked across the stage, and she handed him the disc with their music on it. They stretched to warm up, and then as the first strains came through the speakers, Charlie let the music flow through her, calming her. She smiled as Mitch walked to her and crooked his finger, taking her in his arms. The first couple of attempts they aborted due to either mistakes with the steps or not being quite ready for the lift. They paused for breath and checked the clock. They only had time for one more run-through before the staff would arrive. Taking a deep breath, Mitch gave Charlie a large hug. "We can do it," he whispered, squeezing her hand. This time Charlie forgot her dreams as the magic started to flow and she became baby in the film. She ran towards Mitch and he lifted her. She flung her arms out and remembered the view of the lake. Sliding down his body, they were enjoying a brief kiss when applause started to ring out from the far end of the room. They turned to find the waiting staff and receptionist watching them and enjoying the spectacle. "That was amazing, Mr. Cook. Would you be free to speak to our manager this evening, as he is looking for possible evening entertainers?" "Thanks, Samantha," he said, reading her badge and letting go of Charlie to shake her hand. "Feeling better now?" he asked, pulling her close. "Definitely," Charlie assured him, on tiptoes so that her lips could touch his. "Come on, shall we get showered and dressed, and maybe some breakfast?" She nodded as they weaved between the staff, setting up the tables. Charlotte was aware of all the women looking at Mitchell as they passed. Mitchell saw the eyes of the guys on Charlie and pulled her closer. "Mitch, is it okay if I just give Mum's door a knock after last night?" she asked. "Of course you can. I'll jump in the shower, so take the key and let yourself in." Before they parted, he pulled her close and kissed her slowly. "Don't be too long," he whispered. As Charlotte walked along the corridor to her mum's room, she wondered how last night had been for her. Then her mind went back to her night with Mitchell, and she blushed at the memory. After all, it's not every night a girl loses her virginity. She paused at the door, knocked lightly, and waited. "Hi, Mum." "Morning, Charlie. Is everything okay?" "Yes, Mum. Just been rehearsing downstairs as I was feeling the nerves." "Come in," Steph said, opening the door wider. "So?" Charlotte asked. "Well, we talked, and we'll talk again later today," Steph told her daughter, running her hands through her knotted hair. Charlotte looked disappointed. I'm not unhappy about meeting James again, but 24 years is a long time, and I'm sure we've both changed as people. OK, Mum, Charlotte said, noticing her mother didn't seem to have had much sleep. Just wanted to check you were OK. I'll see you at breakfast, Steph replied. Charlotte opened the door to her room and could still hear the shower running. She stepped out of her clothes and crept in through the bathroom door. It was hard to move the shower curtain quietly, but it didn't matter, because Mitch had heard the door to the room open. As she stepped under the warm jets of water, Mitch held her against his slick body, and she felt a spike of desire course through her. Mitchell ran his hands over her silky body and pressed tight against her. Do we have time? She whispered, running her hands over his chest and then downwards to his hips. I think we do, he replied, hooking his hands under her bum and lifting her into position. In his arms she felt as light as air, floating with him on the waves of emotion. With water running down their hot bodies, Mitchell paused, pushed her against the cooler tiles to steady them. Then they rocked together to the invisible music that seemed to bind them. As the orgasm rocked through her, she called his name and was greeted with the same in return. She knew that they belonged together, and that whatever happened today, she was really looking forward to their dance. And I will pause it here, and you can join me on part 2.